What you're about to witness is one of the most beautiful love stories ever revealed in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom. When this frail 87-year-old man walked in for trespassing on city property, nobody expected what would happen next. But when he started explaining what he's been doing every single morning for 64 years, Judge Caprio did something unprecedented. He stopped court completely. And what this elderly man has been secretly gathering from a public park for his dying wife will leave you sobbing uncontrollably. This isn't just another courtroom case. This is the story of a man who has kept a 64-year promise, one flower at a time through decades of marriage, and who refuses to break that promise even as his beloved wife enters her final days. It's a quiet Wednesday morning in early September. The sun has barely risen over Providence, and the municipal court is beginning its daily session. The usual crowd fills the benches. People with parking tickets, minor infractions, traffic violations. The air carries a mix of nervous chatter and routine monotony. But none of them know that the case about to unfold will stop time for everyone in that room. At precisely 9:30 a.m., the courtroom doors open slowly, and through them walks Edward Eddie Sullivan. He is 87 years old, his frame thin, his steps careful and deliberate. He moves with a dignified slowness, supported by a wooden cane that looks hand-carved, polished smooth by years of use. His shirt is neatly pressed though old, the collar carefully mended. His slacks are ironed with precision and his shoes, though worn, gleam with a faint shine. His white hair is combed back neatly, and his pale blue eyes reflect both exhaustion and an inner light that refuses to fade. But what captures everyone's attention isn't just his age or frailty. It's the small paper bag he carries in his free hand. It's an ordinary grocery bag folded carefully, held to his chest as though it contains something sacred. Eddie has come to court to answer a 150 citation issued by the Providence Parks Department. A week earlier, an officer found him in Riverside Park before opening hours, picking flowers from the municipal rose garden. It's a minor offense, a simple trespassing and property violation. Most people would pay the fine online or have a family member handle it. But Eddie insisted on appearing in person. When Judge Frank Caprio sees him approach the defendant's stand, he immediately senses that this isn't a typical case. There's something about the man's composure, the way he clutches that bag as though protecting a lifetime's worth of memories. The clerk reads out the charge softly, her voice unusually gentle. Mr. Edward Sullivan charged with trespassing on city property and unauthorized removal of vegetation from a public park. Eddie nods politely. Yes, Your Honor. That's me. Judge Caprio glances over his reading glasses, studying the man before him. Mr. Sullivan, he begins kindly. You're accused of entering Riverside Park before opening hours and picking flowers from the rose garden. That's a 150 fine. But before we go further, are you feeling all right? You don't have to stand if it's uncomfortable. Eddie's voice, though frail, carries a quiet strength. Thank you, Your Honor, but I'll stand. I need to say this properly. I need to explain what happened like a man should, standing. The judge sets down his pen completely. He leans forward. All right, Mr. Sullivan, tell me what happened. Eddie draws in a deep breath, his weathered hands tightening around the paper bag. Your Honor, he says slowly, I was in that park at 5:30 in the morning, just like I've been every morning for the last 64 years. I was picking one rose from the municipal garden, like I've done every morning since June 15, 1960. The entire courtroom goes still. Even the hum of the ceiling fans seems to fade. Judge Caprio's brow furrows slightly. 64 years, he repeats. That's quite some time. Why have you been picking one rose every morning for 64 years? Eddie's eyes glisten. His voice trembles but does not break. On June 15, 1960, I married the most beautiful woman in the world, Dorothy. On our wedding day, I gave her a single red rose. And I promised her that every morning for the rest of our marriage, I would give her a fresh rose to remind her that my love was new every day. A hush falls over the courtroom. No one moves. Every word he speaks seems to sink into the room like a hymn. For 64 years, Eddie continues, his voice quivering with emotion. I've kept that promise. Every morning before the sun comes up, I find one perfect rose. Some years I grew them in our garden. Other times, when we lived in an apartment and had no garden, I bought them from a florist. And when money was tight, I found them wherever I could. But Dorothy never woke up without her rose. Even Judge Caprio's voice softens, touched by the sincerity of what he's hearing. Mr. Sullivan, that's extraordinary. But may I ask, why are you picking roses from the park now? Eddie closes his eyes, steadies himself, and when he speaks again, his words carry unbearable pain. Your Honor, 6 months ago, Dorothy was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctor said she had 3 months to live. It's been 6. She's still fighting, but she's getting weaker by the day. The courtroom fills with quiet sniffles. A woman in the back wipes tears from her eyes. Eddie continues, we spent everything we had on her medical bills. The hospice care is helping now, but I live on my Social Security, about $1,200 a month. I can't afford to buy roses anymore. The garden I used to tend died years ago when my hands got too old to work the soil. He looks up at the judge. So 3 months ago, I started walking to Riverside Park. It's half a mile from our house. I go there before dawn, before anyone's around. I take one rose, just one, and I make sure not to hurt the plants. Then I walk home and put it on her nightstand before she wakes up. His voice breaks. I know it's against the rules, Your Honor, but Dorothy is dying, and I can't let her wake up without that rose. Not after 64 years. Not when our mornings together are running out. Judge Caprio's eyes glisten as he looks down, silent for a long moment. Mr. Sullivan, he says softly, why didn't you explain this to the Parks Department? Maybe they could have made an exception. Eddie shakes his head. I tried, Your Honor. I went to their office. They were kind, but they said rules are rules. If they let one person pick flowers, others will too. They told me to buy roses from a grocery store. But Your Honor, he takes a shaky breath. Dorothy deserves better than that. She's had a perfect rose every morning for 64 years. I won't give her a wilted one from a refrigerator. The silence that follows is heavy. Judge Caprio slowly rises from his seat. Mr. Sullivan, may I ask, what's in that paper bag you're holding? Eddie looks down, momentarily confused, as though remembering its weight for the first time. Your Honor, he says softly, these are the roses. The last 7 I picked this week. Dorothy told me to bring them, to show you. She said if you could see them, you'd understand why this matters so much. He opens the bag with trembling hands. Inside are 7 pressed roses, each perfectly flattened between wax paper, still holding faint traces of their original red. Dorothy has kept every rose I ever gave her. Eddie says, tears now streaming freely. Every single one. 64 years of them. Over 23,000 roses. She pressed them all. These are just the most recent. Judge Caprio takes the delicate pressed flowers with reverence, his voice hushed. Mr. Sullivan, these aren't just roses. These are promises kept. He turns to his bailiff. Officer Rodriguez, please adjourn the court for 20 minutes. There's a stir of confusion. Court is never adjourned in the middle of a hearing, but everyone can see something in Judge Caprio's face, a determination born of compassion. He disappears into his chambers, phone in hand. Eddie stands quietly, still holding the bag, unsure what's happening. The courtroom remains in stunned silence as if no one dares to breathe. When Judge Caprio returns 20 minutes later, his eyes are red but his expression carries a quiet smile. He sits down, looks directly at Eddie, and says, "A minute, Sullivan, I've just spoken with the director of the Providence Parks Department. I told them your story. They were deeply moved." Eddie looks up, barely daring to hope. "Your Honor, what did they say?" Judge Caprio smiles gently. "Effective immediately, you are granted a lifetime special permit to enter Riverside Park at any time, day or night, and to take 1 rose per day from the municipal garden. No fines, no fees, no restrictions." Eddie's lips tremble. His eyes widen with disbelief. "You mean I can keep giving Dorothy her morning rose?" "Not only that," Judge Caprio continues, "but the Parks Department will send a horticulturist to your home tomorrow to restore your old garden. Free of charge. They'll plant new rose bushes so that when Dorothy passes, you'll have roses to tend in her memory." The entire courtroom bursts into applause and tears. Even the officers wipe their eyes. But the judge isn't done. He straightens, voice steady but filled with emotion. "Mr. Sullivan, your citation is dismissed, and I am establishing the Dorothy Sullivan Rose Fund so that any elderly person who wishes to give flowers to a spouse in need can do so free of cost." Eddie, shaking, can barely speak. His cane slips as tears stream down his face. A court officer gently supports him. "Your Honor," he whispers, "Dorothy doesn't know about this. I didn't tell her about the ticket. I didn't want her to worry." Judge Caprio steps down from his bench. For the first time, he embraces the old man. "Mr. Sullivan," he says softly, "for 64 years your wife has woken up to a rose. That isn't just love. That's devotion that transcends law itself." The entire courtroom rises to their feet in silence, a spontaneous standing ovation. Even those waiting for their own cases, traffic violators, students, city workers, stand and wipe tears from their faces. Eddie looks around, bewildered. "Your Honor," he asks, voice breaking, "why is everyone standing?" "I just picked some flowers." Judge Caprio smiles gently, voice resonating through the room. "They're not standing for the flowers, Mr. Sullivan. They're standing for you, for 64 years of keeping a promise, for reminding us all what love really means." Eddie lowers his head, overwhelmed by emotion, as the crowd applauds softly, a tribute not to defiance but to a love so pure that it transcends the limits of law.